Well, this was an unexpected video. So, I'll tell you how this started. Drove the car yesterday. Sounded strange. Brought it home. I was thinking maybe the exhaust came apart again. But that might be just part of the problem. Then I seen my steering down there was wet. I'm like, well, that's not supposed to be wet. So I looked down here. See if I can get you in here. And you see that? That's the oil pressure switch. It's leaking right out of the top where the plug goes in. Dumping everywhere. It is an active leak. So we're going to fix that today. Now I do plan to put a gauge in this one day. But until I do, we're just going to get that down there. Now I don't know if I'm going to be able to show you guys, but we're going to try our best. First thing I'm going to do though is I'm going to get the engine degreaser that I bought right here. Yep, I'm going to spray that down in there. Even though the engine's cold, it's fairly warm outside. I'm going to spray that down in there and give that a couple minutes to set, and then I'm going to hose it off. That way it's fairly clean. But I wanted to show you before I started, in case the this degreaser works too well and it ends up actually cleaning something. So, but I'm gonna get this thing started. So let me get this car cleaned off, and then we shall begin. All right, so I took a minute and cleaned the engine off. Looks really good down there now. I'm gonna let that dry. Now, I checked my Buick book, and my Buick book does not tell me the OE procedures for removing and replacing that switch. So we're going to do it the way that we would normally do it on a car that came in, even though we're working at the house today. So let me get you where you can see. All right, so the switch lives underneath where that idler is, and you'll see it better here in a minute. If you're working on a 3800 in a Buick, doesn't matter the model, you need to move your coolant tank. Slides up and off, okay? Demonstrate for you here real quick. People in their noisy trucks, I swear. All right, so you got your coolant tank set like that, okay? So you'll take this cap off, you'll pull this ring back, then you'll grab a hold of it, and you'll just pick it up. Let me show you here how that works. Grab it from each side, pick it up, pull it back. You don't even have to unhook it from the radiator. So, and then we're going to go after the idler pulley right there, 18 millimeter wrench. We're going to take the belt off so that it's a little easier for us to work down there in the event that we've got to do a little bit of extra pull. The good thing about my car is I have a belt chart on the radiator core support. So if I forget how this came off, it'll show me how it goes back on. So pull your belt off. We're going to take it completely off this time. We need to. So pull our belt all the way off. Just like that. We'll set our belt over here, out of the way. Now our belt's going to squeal when we get it started back up, but we got to deal with that when the time comes. Alright, so our switch is down there now. It's underneath the idler. So we're going to reach down here, and you're going to pull your connector off. Take your finger and pop it up. Pops right off. And show you your connectors right there. I don't know if you can see that, but it is 4-pin connector. Make sure that you keep your weather pack on it. It's got oil all inside it too. So we've confirmed our leak. I'll show it to you more in detail when I get it out of the car. Now this next part, you're getting ready to pull the switch out. This depends a lot on if the car sat for a while or if you've been driving it like I have. Either way, you want to go ahead and put a drain pan underneath the oil filter support, or extension housing as it's called. See, I'll show you. You can probably see the switch down there. It's got the green on it. Let's see if I can get a better view of it for you here. Yeah, you can see it right there, that green thing right there. That's your oil pressure switch connector. And then the oil pressure switch sits just on the back side of where that idler is. So I need to go get a drain pan. Largely in part that in some cases there's enough oil where you're going to start draining oil out from that switch opening. We don't want to make a mess, so I'm going to go grab a drain pan, slide under there, and then we're going to figure out how we're going to get that switch out. Alright, I got a socket on it, and I got my drain pan underneath. We're going to take our flexi ratchet, and we're going to lock it on top of this socket right here, and we're going to break this thing loose before the rain hits. Gotta get my socket down on it. Alright, so sometimes you gotta rotate your ratchet to get it down on there. There we go. Go ahead and just give that a turn. Come on. Alright, there it is. Go ahead and pull our ratchet off so we can get it trapped between the engine and the socket. We'll go ahead and spin this puppy out. Now let's see if we have any oil draining out of it. Nope, no oil draining out of it. Threads are a little bunged up, but that ain't too bad though. And that's what it looks like when you get it out. See how it was leaking on the inside of the plug there? That's a common fail point on these. They also like to leak around the outside there. So I'll go grab a new one, and I'll be right back. Got you guys a perfect shot of the hole. That hole down there, that's where this sender goes in. So for 10 bucks, go to your part store. There's your part number for your switch. Before you put it in, you want to get the area cleaned up. Get it wiped off real good. Move your sending unit wire out of the way. You're going to clean the sending unit up too. There's the wire that connects to it. Now because this does thread into a pressure opening, you want to put some thread seal on it. So we got our thread seal here. We're going to put some on the threads on this thing. You want to put this in by hand, tight as you can go, as far as you can go with your hand. There is a torque spec. It's 24 foot-pounds. Not very much. You see, when you get your new switch, this is what it looks like. There's your 4 pins in the side, inside it, and you got that right there, but you're not gonna. You have to have thread seal on this, or it will leak past the threads. So we want to coat this in thread seal, just like it would if it was an OE part. See? It should look like that when you get it all done. And then you can wipe the remains on your car or on the rag or whatever you got. You want to put this down in the hole. You send it down here just like this. Kind of twist it a few times so you feel it catch, and then spin it down by hand. Notice I don't have a socket on it because we're not ready to tighten it down yet. Now if it's a hard to reach area and you can do better with the socket on it, use the socket without the ratchet. Alright, so I got it down as far as I can go by hand. You can see it down in the hole there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my socket. I'm going to clean my socket out because it's still got oil in it. And this is the socket right here that I'm using. It is a Lyle, I think it's 13250 if I remember right. Don't quote me though. It's been a while. I bought this socket for another job that we did on the channel. So switch your ratcheting your flexi ratchet to on. Make sure that you're ready to go. So you want to go ahead and feed this down. Put this on top of the, make sure it locks in. That was the issue I was having before, was it wasn't locking in. Then you take your ratchet and you set your ratchet down on top. You might have to rotate your ratchet a little bit. Let's see if I can get on it. And go ahead and put your other hand down here to act as a friction point until this thing starts to tighten down. You just spin it down with the ratchet. When you feel it starting to tighten up, that's when you would put your torque wrench on it. But I'm not going to torque this down. There's no room to get a torque wrench in there. And I don't have a flexible head torque wrench either. Takes a little while when you only have a little bit of room to work here. Now if you have a short, here let me show you how we can do it. If you didn't have a flexible head ratchet, and let's say you just had your standard short handle ratchet, let me show you how that would go. See, I got my standard short ratchet right here. You could put that down here on top of this socket. Now you got to rotate the ratchet to where it fits on top of the socket. And then you could do it this way. See that? You can do it that way too. You want to run this down till it stops. That way you don't get a light coming on. Oh, that's the other thing. There are two separate types of oil pressure sending units, depending on which dashboard you have. And let's get this tightened up. You have one that has the gauge, and then you have the one that's the light. The common one is the light. So make sure that you know which dashboard you have when you go to order your switch. Alright, so normally on that switch I would use electrical parts cleaner. I don't have any, so I have mass airflow cleaner. All we're doing is cleaning out the oil from inside the plug. I'm trying to anyway. Just kind of clean out the plug. You want it nice and clean when you put it back on. You don't want any oil or anything left on it from the old sending unit. And then we're going to plug it back in. Now, sometimes you gotta, now this one we gotta wipe off our plug. Sometimes the plug will dry on its own because that electrical parts cleaner is fast drying. Alright, you don't need to use any dielectric grease on this plug. Alright, so what you need to do now is you need to look at your plug, look at your sender, figure out where your little tab is, and then you can put your plug back in your new sender. Lock it down. Alright, that part's done. We're not done yet though, because we got to put our belt back on. So 18mm wrench fits this very nicely. You could probably use a 17, but I don't know. I used an 18. So we're going to zoom you back here so you can see our belt train. Now if you look over here, we have a belt routing chart. GM was nice enough to give us a belt routing chart, so we're going to try to install the belt. I don't like doing these on camera because it takes me forever, but we have a chart, so you know, as long as we figure out which way we're going. This chart even tells you which way the idler goes. Let me show you this. This is pretty neat. All right, you see our belt routing? Shows you which way the idler goes, which is something I've never seen before. And then we got a spider web right there, so you know, there's that. All right, so now that we've done all the awesome for the day, let's get our belt back on. Now, as far as how often those switches fail, I can't tell you, because I've seen cars that, like this one, had 84,000 miles on it and they failed. Then there's some cars that have had 284,000 on them and they failed. So it just depends. Alright, so we got our belt ratted around the bottom and we're already screwing up. Alright, so let's see, we gotta go crank and we gotta go up around the water pump. Okay, so we gotta go up around the water pump and we gotta go. While you're doing this, keep tension on your belt, because if you don't, it will try to come off. So when you get it wrapped around the crank, make sure it's wrapped around the crank real good. Okay, and then you want to hang on to it. Keep tension on one side while you manipulate the other side. Alright, so we got, alright, so our crank pulley comes around the far side, wraps around the water pump like this, and it came off again, so we're going to have to get it. I will show you the full struggle. I will not edit none of this out, okay? I just want you to see the struggle that I have sometimes with these belts. Alright, so, and then the other part is that they get to be so long that they get caught up on your stuff. Okay, so then it comes down to the air conditioning. We got to wrap it around the bottom of the air conditioner now. Alright, I got it wrapped around the bottom of the air conditioner. We have here in a minute. Alright, so we got that on there. Comes up to the alternator. Comes down underneath the tensioner, or the idler. They're calling this an idler, not a tensioner. So we'll wrap it around the bottom of that thing. And then we will get our power steering pump ready. And you know you did it right when you have no slack left. Alright, so then we gotta get that down up into there. Grab our wrench that we used to take it off with. Pull up. I believe we pull up. Yep, that's it. Pull up and then let go. Now your belt's on. Alright, well, see, we got some problems here, so now we gotta loosen our belt back up. Make sure that your belt sits inside the center of your pulleys. The ones that don't have grooves in them, you want them to sit in the center. The ones that do have grooves on them, you want them to sit in between, right in line with the grooves. Okay, so we're going to leave our washer tank, or our engine coolant tank, over on the front. And I'm going to go ahead and start the car. You may hear it squeal, because we may have water still on our pulleys. So we're going to start it up and check it for leaks. And if we're leak free, then we'll shut it off and see how many quarts of oil down we are. Alright. Let's do this thing. Get the key in the switch. will do it. They're not leaking. I don't see any other leaks in the system. So I'm going to go ahead and shut it off and we'll check our oil. Always check your oil after you get done with a job. Especially if it's been leaking a while. This one just started, so I caught it before it got to be too bad. So we'll check our oil. This procedure goes for all 3800s from 86 to 92. I think 92 is the Series 2 3800, which is basically the same thing except the location's different. We are a quart low. So, yep, we are a quart low. So I will go get me a quart of 1030 because that's what I put in here. We'll get it filled back up and then I'll be done here. So, but yeah, this goes for 3800s in Pontiacs, Oldsmobile, Buick. Some of the models that may use this are like the Delta 88, the 98s, the Cutlass Supreme, Pontiac Bonneville, Buick. They had these engines in the LeSabre, the Park Avenue, the Electra, the late model Electra. I think the, of course, this is the LeSabre. So, yeah, Series 1. I'm going to call this Series 1, otherwise known as the 3800 that doesn't leak, unless there's something wrong with it. In this case, we had a bad oil pressure switch. So, hope you found this useful. Be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one.